Welcome to the Bonded Podcast Foundation Series, hosted by Dr. Patty and Lizzie Shutt,
where we explore attachment healing and the bonds that shape us as children, as adults, and as parents.
We talk about the joy, the complexity, and the challenges that come with forming deep human connection.
From before conception through early childhood and far beyond.
Whether you're expecting, adopting, navigating loss, or supporting someone you love,
or simply wanting to better understand yourself and the ways your early experiences still impact you today,
these conversations are for you.
The podcast isn't just about raising secure children.
It's about healing ourselves, breaking generational cycles, and creating relationships rooted in safety, trust, and authenticity.
You'll hear from experts and parents alike on topics like fertility and perinatal loss,
adoption, returning to work,
temperaments, identity shifts,
and the emotional realities that often go unspoken.
So settle in,
take a breath,
and know that wherever you are on this journey, you're not alone.
You are not alone.
So welcome back, everyone, to the Bonded Podcast. Today we are speaking with Stephanie Loesel, owner and CEO of Cakewalk Virtual Services. She is actually a former team member of the Therapeutic Oasis. And when she had her baby girl, she made the bold decision to stay home afterwards, after a short time of coming back to the office. And I love this, when I feel like I lived through that decision with you, and rather than you feeling like you had to actually choose between a career or a stay-home mom, you actually really figured out this beautiful middle path, which I feel is so DBT, right? Where you could maintain even some of the role that you did with us while actually being home with your daughter and launching and growing a successful business. So love to have you share with us a little bit about this story. And welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel like this is such a full circle moment, really, where we find ourselves. So yeah, I'm excited.
So tell us a little, I was there, but of course all the listeners weren't there. You had quite the journey, even really, I don't know if you want to even back it up to be like, getting pregnant wasn't just like a snap for you. So
yeah, I'll back it all the way up to a point in time when I was super lost in my career. I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I knew what I could do and what I was capable of, but I was, found myself stuck in this place of feeling like I needed to work in a field that I didn't want to be in anymore. And I didn't really see a lot of options presenting themselves because many jobs require you to have experience in what they're looking for. And when I reached out to Therapeutic Oasis, so this is pre-COVID 2019 times, I really was just looking to teach yoga on the side, and you and the other owners saw something in my resume. I happened to turn in a whole CV for my yoga teaching. I said, I just want to teach yoga at your new office I heard about, and you all said, sure, that would be great, but also, and what I really feel thankful for is that you were able to look past the fact that I was coming directly from hospitality industry and said, look at these skills that this person has and look at what they're capable of and how can we apply those in what we need, instead of going, oh, the last job that you had actually doesn't align with exactly what we need. And I think that a lot of other businesses need to take note of that, because and I do in my role now as a business owner and with people working underneath me. So thank you for that, for bringing me into a place where I couldn't have aligned it. Even when I write out my resume to this date, it's like, how did that happen? That you said, look at these skills of leadership and customer service, and that's what we need in our practice. So that's how I ended up at Therapeutic Oasis as the office manager for the Jupiter, at the time, the Jupiter office. And I worked there for 5 years,
Yeah.
through COVID, through changes, through ups, downs, growth. And I got pregnant and was pregnant through my whole time of working there. You guys threw me the most lovely baby shower. And then I went out on maternity leave. I think I was out for like 6 weeks or so. And when I came back, I I wasn't prepared for the reaction, and I mean like a in my body visceral reaction to leaving the baby, because I've always been like a hustler, even when I worked at Therapeutic Oasis and previously, I've always had a yoga side business and I bake cakes on the side, and I just have a lot of interests that fill my life. And I thought I was going to go, okay, back to work, here we go. And I had the opposite reaction. I felt physically ill. And I think only parents can understand the pull that you feel, that you're almost driving in the wrong direction, like you forgot something at home. And I really tried to push through that as much as possible, because I was like, well, this is what you have to do. This is what a lot of people do, is the thing. This is what my mom did. This is what a lot of people's moms do. And so I tried to push through that. And then, um, come, maybe 2 or 3 months into going back to work, I was driving to work, I was pumping in the car. And so just, a mix of emotions anyway. I, my cousin, who's about the same age as I am, has a baby who's 2 months younger than my baby, and started having medical emergencies and a lot of different things going on. He was hospitalized for a few months, and like that day when that started happening, I just could not leave her. I had her in my arms, and I was like, I cannot. I can't, because if anything ever happened to her, I don't know what I would do. So I decided that I had to figure out something that I just did not. Maybe it's for other people to, let somebody else watch their baby, but I just couldn't physically do that anymore. I wasn't in a good place. I wasn't working as well up to my potential as I felt like I could, because I was so sidetracked on, worrying what's going on with her. And, but it was a struggle for me, because I really enjoyed the work that I was doing. And so I tossed it back and forth for, quite a while. And ultimately, the only reason I really was able to take the leap and start a virtual assistant business was because you all were like, okay, we really would like to keep you. So can we keep you? And I was like, no, I'm going to go and try this thing. And then we worked out how I could still stay with you. So actually, along with my first two clients, and then you all were my third client, with those contracts, I was able to take that leap right into it without really a gap or, that much stress financially. So it kind of, worked out. I feel like, the best way that it possibly could, to do a change that was that scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Stephanie, you obviously made it easy. Okay. And I think that, it is true that some people don't really recognize and value the people that work for them. And I mean, just hearing you say that you didn't think you were doing your best. You're better than literally most people on your worst day. Okay. And so I think that certainly was absolutely never apparent to us. And so, number one, being obviously a mother and owning and running a business. And I had the pleasure of being able to really work part-time when my kids were really little. And so, and I do believe in if you can make it happen, and we definitely didn't want to lose you. And I think that, obviously wonderful employers out there, they other people do this. We're not the only people who can recognize and value the people that work for them and find a way. I think that we had a little help from like the universe of COVID, and how much that even paved a little bit of the way for there were times where you were like literally working from home.
Yeah.
And so it already gave us all a sense of just confidence. And even like, we did it. So it's not impossible. And so much trust in you. Like was like literally no question, I know, in our mind that, your quality of work would never be less than. And so that part was easy. And I think that what is amazing to me, and I am so happy, number one, that we were able to make that happen, to be able to keep you in one of the really special, unique roles that you played for us. And so I love that and cherish that. But now to see what you have grown, which I really like, I have goosebumps all over my body and chills because I'm just like, every time I see you, I follow you on social media and I'm like, wow. Like, I mean,
all my
every, like,
all my accounts, all my different accounts.
even just like literally month to month to just see you flourishing and growing. And I am so proud of you. And yes, you were amazing the minute we met you. But to see the unbelievable, endless, infinite potential that you have demonstrated in such a short time, I just want to be like, wow, and celebrate you today. Okay. And I just feel like maybe this is really true for all of us, that when we listen, when we are truly connected and listening to our wise mind, that place in us that knew, when you were like, I can't do this. And you honored really both parts of you, that is like, I am this creative, industrious, hardworking person who's used to like doing all kinds of things. And I'm a mom. And when you literally embraced both and opened yourself to that all of this is just blooming. So it kind of makes sense. And I want you to really share with people like that sort of beginning, like you shared the beginning. Okay, I started out and it was relatively easy, but you didn't just stay with easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess I'll go from the beginning of my journey. I heard about virtual assisting through a podcast, and I started to listen to it on my way to and from work, and it was helpful regardless of what I was doing because it was motivational and it was about other moms who had started virtual assistant work and were able to support support their family as well as um, be around their children or at least be in the home. And I just kept thinking, well, that's not me because I didn't know how to, and I didn't know if it would create enough of an income, and there were so many ifs. And my family member's baby illness really made me take the leap. So I signed up for a course that was basically just like a how to become a virtual assistant. And what I learned was that I knew a lot of how to do the things. It was just packaging it together. And what I did like about the course is that the modules were okay, make your LLC, make your pricing sheet, make your this, make your that. So by the end, it wasn't just information. I had already executed everything so that at the end, I had a business, I was ready to go. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to put on the brakes again. It was like, okay, it's go time. And, I need to get one of the modules was reach out to clients. So by the end of that, I finished that. I was doing that in the middle of the night while I was pumping or feeding or, and at the end of, my work day, I would do some of that. And I finished, and then I booked my first client who was a therapist. And then she told another client who was a neuropsychologist. She told another client, and it really just word of mouth. And then I signed on with you all as a contractor and left my role after about a month or so. I had 5 regular monthly clients in my virtual assistant practice, and so that included all therapists, basically everything from billing, administrative work, marketing, to just special projects in support of their business. So I did that for a year pretty much, or maybe half of a year before I just started getting more and more inquiries, and I started to take them on myself because I have a hard time saying no. And it just really started to kind of take its toll, and I just was losing a little bit of balance. I wanted to make sure that I could do everything that I said that I could do for the clients that I had. So I took a step back. My therapist says take a step back to take a step forward sometimes. And I hired a virtual assistant to work inside of my business. And so that was February of last year. And so we're about coming up on a year that I've had people working for me. And that was a challenge in and of itself. I didn't know how to structure that, how to pay someone, how to do all of those things. So that was just one of the other things that I had to figure out, build the plane as I was flying it, as they say. And then I brought on another person, I let go of someone, I brought on another person. So we've gotten to the point now where we have 6 virtual assistants plus myself that are working on various projects, everything from supporting therapy practices with admin, billing, marketing to, sometimes we'll have special projects like a website redesign, or, somebody wants to build up their networking circle. So we'll do some referral development for them. So all within the health and wellness space. The majority, I would say probably about 80% of my clients are therapists or psychologists in private practice or with a small group practice. And I also have like some adjacent industries that I've worked with, acupuncturists, and occupational therapists. So because I got really specific with my language about speaking to therapists, people said, yes, that's me. But then there are also like these outliers that are like, well, that's kind of me. And so they kind of sneak in every once in a while. But, everything pretty much still applies as far as the niche and the industry go. So, yeah, so now I'm, supporting and helping 6 other virtual assistants do their projects. I still have my own client work that I do, projects that I really love and, hold dear. And then I also have started in the past 6 months, I started doing some virtual assistant coaching purely because I really fell in love with teaching the VAs on my team like, here's how we're going to get better at this. Here's the best way to do X, Y, and Z. And I started making recordings and essentially modules for them to do. Like, here's how to handle insurance billing claim issues. Like, instead of repeating this all the time, I'm going to make a video and send it to all of them. So in supporting them and helping my business, get more clear about our strategies and streamline things, I essentially came up with almost like a course for virtual assistants to learn to work with therapists in particular. And then I also offer one-on-one coaching just in general if somebody wants to learn to become a virtual assistant.
Wow. I love how it really naturally grew once again from your attunement, right, to yourself, kind of staying attuned to what is working for you. Of, oh boy, this is getting to be too much. What am I going to do? And then that ability to take that step back, and really reassess, and then boom, a new kind of branch grew. So I love that. Again, I want to just emphasize, because I feel like that's something that you continue to grow really from that staying attuned to what it is that you need and what's balance or out of balance, right? Because I think of like life, like we're always really working towards, finding balance, maintaining it. And we're going to naturally move out of balance. Yeah.
Yeah, you make it sound very graceful. The the attunement sometimes looks like, and I just say this so that people know that whatever you're doing is probably normal and exactly what I did. The attunement looks like, being up until 2 a.m. because that's the time that I had to work and really fit in all the projects, and then realizing I have to wake up at 5 a.m. to continue to fit in the projects. And and that was not okay for me, and even just nervous system wise, realizing how many people were depending on the things that I was doing. I was like, I, I can't, I was frozen. And that's what it felt like a lot of times, is that I was stuck in a place where I couldn't think creatively. I didn't look forward to the work because there was so much of it. And it just felt so heavy. So, yeah, so I did take a moment or even a couple weeks to think, oh, I could do this. Maybe I could push forward. Let me just work on Saturday and Sunday. And then I started to give up some of those things that I had set out to, really cherish and make sure that I could set aside time for. I started to cut into those to make space for. So, yeah, so I did have to do some adjusting, and some of that was uncomfortable too. Some of those adjustments and changes were uncomfortable also. But um, I feel like every time I get uncomfortable, it's because there's some sort of change happening. So even this past week has been a really kind of hectic business week, to be honest. And even though it's a little scary with changes, because it's like I'm dealing with my income and other people's income and my future and my baby's future. And I started a 401k, all these things that are dependent on me. But I know just already from the past that anytime that anything feels like it's shifting or changing or is uncomfortable, there's something way better on the other side of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I really appreciate you, you know, really being authentic and really sharing that those points of really right before these growth or changes, that they really were more tumultuous and maybe even painful and really, really unpleasant. And they might not have been like an aha moment, but that it might have been like, oh my God, sitting in like a lot of discomfort for a couple of weeks, or feeling like you're at the end of your rope and something has to give, and how after giving up something that was important to you, you were able to come back and say, that doesn't feel good. And so this process of going through all of this while you have this little schniddle, bouncing around, and, on even meetings that you and I have had, it's always brought so much joy to watch her, to listen to her, and to have her join the meetings, which I think is so cool, by the way. My hope is that, she grows with with that sense of admiration for her mama, because not only is she an amazing mama, but wow, is she an amazing businesswoman, you know? So I have a feeling that little Junie is gonna be like, I have the greatest mom in the world.
Yeah, that part has been challenging.
Tell us.
When she was a little nugget, it was fine because she couldn't go she couldn't even crawl anywhere when I first started. It was great. I would just lay her with her toys. She would do tummy time, and I would work. She would still be there, and I would continue working, and I would get 6 to 8 hour days. I would get in a workout. It was great. It was really great. And then come the walking days, it definitely got more challenging because I have to have my eyes on her all the time. So it got harder, and I was getting busier, so that was a challenge. I've been lucky to have my in-laws were very close to us. I live on the same street, so two houses away, and so my mother-in-law has been really helpful in if I need a break, like, hey, I have a Zoom call. I do try to, if I have like a brand new client meeting or a discovery call with a new client or a coaching call, I try to see if someone, especially at this point, because she's talking, she knows that I'm on the computer. If either grandma or if dad's home to, to watch her for a little bit, just because she wants my attention so much that I can't give my full attention, not because I care that she's around. I set a precedent early on that myself and any virtual assistants that work with me are going to probably have kids around. And if a client is not okay with that, then they're not the client for us, because I can't just disappear her from,
Yeah.
being here. So And with that being said, if I really need to like have my full attention, I do have, I'm lucky to have those supports like my mother-in-law. I have tossed around the idea of like daycare or preschool, but I'm really pushing until she's at least 3. I don't want her to go at all, but there are times when I'm like, I worked 2 hours today because we were playing, and my clients, it's also not fair to them, right? If they think that I've set aside time for them. So there is this balance of figuring that out, and the older she gets, the more challenging it gets, especially now that she's 2. So everything is, all about her as it should be. So yeah, so I'm balancing it really as best I can. Right now, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I wait until 7. I work. I wake. See, mom brain. I work until 7:30 when she wakes up, so that I can get just some quiet, uninterrupted time. My husband is a firefighter, so his schedule sometimes allows him to be home for whole days at a time. So he will take her. This morning he took her to gymnastics, and yesterday she went to swimming. So there are pockets of time that I can like try to fit in my work. And then, sometimes she watches Miss Rachel or watches Elmo for an hour. I'm not perfect as much as I would like to limit screen time. Sometimes Miss Rachel is the free babysitter that I need to knock out a project so that then I can actually sit and be present with her while she eats her lunch and things like that. So there is this balance, and I don't feel like I'm, getting it perfect all the time, but my goal is to just be as present for her as possible, at least until she gets to the point where maybe she's asking to go somewhere, asking to go to school or something like that. But until then, I just want to have that attachment with her.
Yeah, I love that. Even that recognition of, there is no perfect parent. Perfection is not the goal. And so it makes me really think about self-compassion. And I'm wondering if that's something that has been helpful to you, mindfulness and self-compassion throughout this journey.
I practice it as much as I can as a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist, and with my OCD tendencies, actual OCD tendencies, I that is something that I struggle with, and I am my harshest critic. And I find that oftentimes many of the things that I'm thinking are going on, or thinking that someone else is thinking, are not actually the case, and that I am making it in my mind a little bit more of a thing than it should be. And so I always like to check the facts, take take a breath, take a step back. Um, I'm not perfect at doing this. Sometimes it takes me a day or so to really, kind of cool down from whatever it is that's going on. And I do try to remind myself often that probably like if it's a situation between a business owner and myself, probably I am being harder on myself than they even are thinking or even imagining, not even a fraction. So I try to give myself, a little bit of grace and let myself know that I'm doing the best that I possibly can in this moment, and that I'm human, and that I'm not a robot, and I can't service, 18 businesses at once, although I would like to be able to. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out one day.
Well,
Um,
even that recognition of your own tendencies, by the way, is really mindfulness, and being able to catch yourself kind of going into those habit patterns of, when under stress, striving, for greater kind of performance, and then being able to recognize what the mind, the inner critic does, is all really mindfulness. And then using skillful ways to kind of check the facts, or even just gently reminding yourself, right? Like, oh yeah, I know I do that thing where I make up stories that people are thinking things, and that might possibly be my inner critic who's actually the one thinking it.
right. And two, something that my own therapist has encouraged me to do that I found super helpful and insightful, and I wondered how I didn't think of this myself because it just makes sense, is is to think of the future me. Because anytime I find myself in a situation, a precarious situation that I'm overwhelmed, overbooked, just burning the candle at both ends, it's many times a product of my own doing. I said yes to too many things. I overcommitted. I don't know how to allot time well. And I don't like letting people down. I like to do the things that I say that I can do. Um, and so she has encouraged me to think of, if I say yes to this, think of the future me and what the future me, not of like, oh, I'm happy I took on this project, but what does that look like in the future? Is the future me overbooked and stressed out and crying on the Zoom call to the therapist saying, why did I do this to myself? And if that's the case, do we push back a little bit the start date? Do we say no? Do we refer out? And that's been a really helpful tool for me because in the present moment, I find that I don't have those all of those go out the window because I get so into that. I get like in the flow of things and I'm like, yes, let's do that. I'm with you. Let's go. And I don't have like, I need to pull back a little bit. So now I don't say yes on discovery calls. I don't even really give pricing on discovery calls. I ask about their budget
Mhm.
and I step away. I think about what that feels like, what it felt like to talk to the person, even because I'm going to be dealing with this person a lot as a client. Did it, when I think of their tasks and imagine myself doing their tasks, what does that feel like in my body? Because I have a hard time connecting that sometimes because I get very in my head and I'm like, whatever, my body will figure it out. And so, do I like all of those things? And after taking like an inventory of that, is that something that I still want to pursue, and what would future me think about that?
I love that. There you are again, kind of going back to that intuition of, or that inner knowing, and how you've figured that out about not saying yes right away to something, but sort of slowing down your even process of, uh, you know, deciding to take on a new client is whether, really checking in with yourself, and feeling and sensing that. I love that. I'm curious because this is making me think about some of the maybe similarities of sort of parenting and how some of the tools that you might be using to parent.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think being a mother has made me a better business owner, albeit I'm busier in my personal life, and I can see why sometimes businesses maybe discriminate against mothers because their schedules are packed and our brains are full, and like, okay, she's going to ask off a lot type of thing, because we do often shoulder a lot of the household duties and burdens and remembering the dates of all the things, and it's just the way that me personally, how I naturally am.
Mhm.
um and but I guess not but and I think that my intuition has become more attuned to being a mother. I can sort out what's important much more quickly, not important, important, and file those for later. I can more easily stop myself what I'm doing and pivot to something else, versus like could work all night. If she wasn't around, I could just work all night. I would just keep going and neglect sleep and neglect those things. But I'm like, okay, let's. I need to sleep, so let's pause this. I need to show up for her, and so it's made me have to you know take an inventory of what is taking up my time, what's important, what's not important, and how do I restructure it to make sure that the most important things are happening, that I'm not falling short on those, and that I still fit in all of the things that I need to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I love your process of, even how you've evolved in this. It's beautiful. I'm curious what you would tell, if you look back at it, and what kind of advice you might give to other women, anything that you might have learned. Sometimes it's helpful to help each other out so people don't have to figure all of this out on their own. Although I do think there's an element of there being individual differences, but any kind of things that you look back and go,
Yeah,
share.
I think number one, you you have to trust yourself. Even if it doesn't look right on paper. I mean, even when I left my career that I was in hospitality to come and work for you in Therapeutic Oasis, starting out part time, on paper that looked not right, right? But I told my husband this was the first time I had ever experienced this, actually knowing, instead of going, oh, I'm just supposed to do this. I graduate college, I'm supposed to do this. I said to him, I know that this doesn't look right on paper, but it feels right. And he was like, okay, good
Cool.
enough for me. And so I think that is important for people to remember, because that has gotten me so much further than just something making sense on paper ever did. Something making sense on paper was like, okay, I'm in just, kind of like, you know, a, moving along like a cog in a wheel. But the really trusting in yourself and in your intuition, and like, this feels right or this doesn't feel right, has just, skyrocketed me to points where I don't think I could have fought myself into.
Yes, I love that. Even how you've described, and I've known you, so we've worked together, and the idea of, knowing when we get into our head and we're overthinking something, right? And how really probably no really wise choices come out of overthinking. And I'm curious about, what kinds of things do you think helped cultivate for you that connection to being able to come to trust that? Like in your own life, what have been the most significant things to nurture your connection with that inner wisdom?
um, Not trusting it or being connected with it originally, and just going with, I guess this is the next step, and feeling so off. Um, and it felt off in, I don't know, it felt like I was like almost in a simulation, right? Like that I wasn't even, like that I was just going along the way, that I wasn't like about anything, like drawn toward anything, or, it was just like, okay, I guess this is the next thing. And when I did find those things, and I guess you could describe it as like being in a flow state or something, I was taken away by them. Like when I discovered, a yoga practice, a regular yoga practice, I went from practicing to, I went to yoga teacher training to teaching to now it's like, my passion project. And it's just one of those things that when I started it, I was like, I have to go with this. And I think I only knew that because I tried it, and I hadn't felt that before. So noticing the difference in some in the way that you feel in your body, mentally, when you think about the thing that you're going for, like, does it excite you, or is it like, this is just one of those things, and paying attention to that, because I hadn't felt that yet, or in a long time, maybe since childhood. And then once I discovered yoga, and like, and the community that comes with it, and just the movement and all of that, I felt that, and that's how I felt each time that I went to take a leap towards something. I was like so drawn toward it, so like, this is the only thing that makes sense, and I went towards that. And anything that wasn't right for me, it kind of just like felt stagnant, like there was no forward movement, and I wasn't pulled toward it. I wasn't daydreaming about it.
Mhm. Wow, I really love that. And movement in particular, how that, it may not be the thing for everyone, but how movement allowed you to really connect with that inner sense, that feeling in that activity. And then you trusted that, and then it led to more sense of trusting, and on and on and on. And how it continues to be in your life. It's a part of your passion, and maybe at one point you thought it was going to be like your work life, and how it became really like a vehicle almost for you to expand even more. I
Well,
just.
and I plan on one of my goals is to expand on my current yoga business.
Mhm.
And this is something too, maybe to even think about or that I've thought about is that I wanted to push forward with yoga. I was in a place where, I was working full time, but I was teaching. I don't even want to tell you how many classes I was teaching. Too many for a person that's working full time, but I would teach every weekend day. I would teach at night. I would teach workshops, and it never felt like work, and it still doesn't feel like work to me. It's like cool. I get to get together and move with people with cool music. Like it doesn't, feel like clocking into a job. And I had thought about that as an avenue for me when I was, thinking about this change and this shift, but it would still pull me away from home because it's, you know, maybe I could do some virtual classes here and there, but to really build that community and I guess you could say like a yoga group following or something. I feel like I needed to be teaching in person again, and people have asked that of me quite a bit. I have gone back to doing some workshops. I have one coming up here in February at a in a salt cave
Ooh.
here where I live, and I do some private lessons with people. But it wasn't the right time for me to expand my yoga business because being at home was my priority, but I still have continued teaching. I've still continued learning because my eventual goal is to go back into that. I every week I field messages from people. When are you teaching another class? When are you teaching another class? So that is in my eventual goals. I just needed to take a step back because my nugget, and I also needed to figure out how I wanted to show up in that space again and what I wanted to teach and who I wanted to work with.
I love it. So she's going to be back. She's putting it out there in the universe, right? That yoga is more than just, your little passion, that it really might be a way of life for you. And
Yeah, maybe for mom virtual assistants, I'm going to teach them yoga. I don't know. People that work at home, I really need it more than ever, from sitting so much. So I'm
yeah.
considering and talking some ideas around. But I did want to go back to your point about advice to people because I had this thought also that was really important to me was to not be afraid to tell people what you're doing. When I first started, I was terrified to tell people, oh, I'm going to try this new venture, another thing, because that's what it felt like in my mind. Again, I am my harshest critic, and I feel like many women are. And because I came from hospitality, and then I tried something different, and then I worked for Therapeutic Oasis. Then I started yoga, and then now I have a new thing. So it felt like, oh, here she goes with a new thing again, and the fear of failing and failing publicly was really scary for me because nobody likes that. So I hesitated to tell anyone about it, to post about it, to share about it. And I feel like that for the first month or so kind of made things a little stagnant. Nobody's going to hire a business that they've never heard of. So once I got some positive feedback from some of the people I was working with, I started telling everybody, anybody who would listen. And some of my best, most favorite clients, like I hope that I'm at their kids' graduation. Like they came to me from people that I just told about what I was doing, friends or just even acquaintances. This is what I'm doing, and they said, "Oh, I know someone who could benefit from that," and then they connected me. So don't discount the power of someone hearing about what you're doing, and people just naturally want to connect other people. It's just like what they do. Even people you didn't think would know someone who could, benefit from your business, but you really never know. So just don't be afraid to talk about what you're doing, tell people what you're doing, what your goals are, and speaking it sometimes is helpful, not only to get them interested, but to just be like, I'm a virtual assistant. Nobody gave me that title. Like I just said that one day. So
Yes, I love that. I mean, that's such a powerful thing, I think, just in general, in life, right? Is being able to speak something. I mean, that's part of, I'm a psychologist, and people come and they speak to me, and the power of what happens when they just speak and use their own voice and hear themselves say things. So being able to really own that. And I love the I mean, I really cannot say enough about how joyful it is when I see your posts. They make me happy all the time. Right away, I get like a spark of incredible joy, and so proud of you. And it's such an amazing business that you created. And I want you to share with listeners. I mean, I think a lot of therapists actually, listen to our podcast. So it would be wonderful, and for them, of course, to reach out to you and find out how they can touch base with you. And also, of course, maybe other mothers who are like, oh my gosh, I want to learn how to become a virtual assistant. This sounds, they might be pregnant right now and trying to figure out, how am I, maybe I can do this. So maybe you could let listeners know how they can connect with you best.
yeah, so anyone who's interested in virtual assistant services, you could be a therapist, psychologist, or even just in the health and wellness space. We're well equipped to work with all different types of businesses. My website is cakewalkvirtual.com. I'm also on Instagram. If you find things there, it's at cakewalkvirtual. And my name is Cakewalk because I used to be a pastry chef back in the day, and it just made sense because we want your business to feel like a cakewalk. So
I love it.
that's where you can find me. And then I also, on my website, have a page for virtual assistants if people are interested in getting started virtual assisting, or for VAs who maybe want to specialize in a specific area. I feel like being that I specialized in the therapy niche, that helped me to understand how to specialize, niche down, and get really specific in the people that I was working with. And that helped my business grow and helped more people be attracted to it. So that's also an area too, is for VAs who maybe want to specialize or feel a little stuck or want to grow a little bit, and offering coaching for those things as well. So you can go to my website. And I also have another Instagram page, which is Cakewalk CEO, and that is for my coaching. So there's like tips on there, and my little lessons as I continue to grow. So
Beautiful. Oh, well, so many wonderful wishes for the future Cakewalk and Stephanie. I have done your yoga before, and I would love to come to that salt cave. It's on my bucket list to
yeah,
travel up to you and enter that salt cave. I love to move with you, and I look forward to seeing all the future kind of creations, maybe even taste a cake or two in the future. Who knows?
that too. That
We've had a few of those along the way, but I really deep gratitude for joining us today, sharing about your beautiful creation. That's really come from deep inside of you, your heart, and all of these gifts, these really natural, amazing gifts that you have, that you're sharing with so many other people than just us.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything. I feel like you were like the catapult for me to learn a lot, and yeah, and I wouldn't have had that had you not trusted me and said. I think it was literally you that emailed me, Patty, and was like, "Yeah, yoga sounds good, but also I want to talk to you about something else."
Yeah. Exactly. That's cool. Yes, you are an amazing yoga teacher and so much more. Mama, CEO, you keep going, girl, okay? And I hope listeners will follow you and connect with you. And I appreciate you every day.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If it spoke to you, it'll probably speak to someone you love too. Share it with a friend and leave us a 5-star review to help spread the message it's never too late to heal.